Hey everybody, so today we have Jess Bledsoe from Elevate by RCN, and she is a Zapier expert. She's going to drop a ton of information on us today about exactly the top 10 best ways to use Zapier to automate your office tasks. And if you guys aren't familiar with Zapier, Zapier is a program that takes the majority of your data entry and it just automatically does it for you, so you don't need a human to ever touch it. So you're not going to lose Facebook leads. You're going to have them automatically generated into a Google form. They can get dropped right into your CRM. It can send off an email automatically. Super, super awesome stuff that you're going to want to stick around and find out. And also, Jess has an app that's coming out that will actually put tags inside of your calendar so that you can search by tags. So you're not going to want to miss this episode. It's going to give you back a ton of time. So enjoy. Have you ever wished you could eavesdrop on a conversation with a millionaire? My name is Michelle Thompson. I'm a retired project controls engineer and business professor, and that's exactly what I'm going to do in this podcast. I get to ask the questions that everyone else wishes they could. I'm going to find out exactly how they were able to build their empires through automation and outsourcing. And I'm going to break it down in a way that helps you build your business to run on autopilot. Don't miss out on Automate to Dominate.
Yeah, so we are G Suite partners, Google Cloud partners, and we are Zapier certified experts. So those are really the two primary things that we focus on with our small business clients, helping them migrate to the cloud and kind of get all of their files and information in one place. And then once we kind of have that foundation of G Suite in place and they're familiar with Gmail and Google Calendar and Google Drive and doc sheet slides, all those things that come with your G Suite subscription, then we can really start automating some of their business processes using Zapier, which is an application that kind of connects all of your cloud apps together so that if you put information in one place, you can get the information into another application without having to do a lot of data entry or technical work to make that happen.
Okay, awesome. And that's one of the things that we're super in tune to is we try to get as many robots to do as much work for us as we possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. Robots are way cheaper to hire than people is what we always say. And robots rarely fail and they don't call in sick or need vacation time. They work for you 24/7. So we love robots so that your people can focus on what they're really good at. And so your business can continue to grow without, somebody having to spend 10 hours a week just doing data entry type things.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, we try to, so I deal a lot with outsourcing, but you can't, it doesn't make sense to outsource something to a human that a robot can do, right?
Exactly.
So we try to integrate the two, and the things that robots can't do yet, then we're able to outsource that to an actual human being. But I absolutely love the fact that you guys, do the robot animation too. And that's actually why I was so excited to talk to you about all the cool tools and tricks that you use with Zapier. So what are like the top 10 things that give us the most bang for our buck and give us the most time using Zapier?
Sure. So let me just preface this by saying that a lot of our clients are small businesses. They typically have less than 50 employees, but the bulk of them, I would say, have around 10 to 15 internal staff that are really kind of like running the office operations. So we have manufacturing clients, transportation, hospitality. So they're in industries where maybe they have workers that aren't as important to the office infrastructure. But that's what we're really focused on is kind of the internal piece that's helping the rest of the business run.
So could you do it with a virtual team too, just as easily?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've worked virtually with several companies, but we're primarily working with that core office staff to help them with their systems. So typically what that looks like, it means that they have or they need a CRM. They're using those G Suite tools that we talked about, primarily Gmail, Google Calendar, and Google Drive. And then they might also be using a project management tool like Trello. And as far as like marketing, they may be doing some social media type ads as well. So I just want to say that because a lot of the things that I have on my kind of list all kind of fall into those categories because it's a universal need for any small business. You're going to need that kind of foundation of things to help you grow your business.
So now we absolutely integrate it. That's what we use. We use the G Suite platform, but then also I found out today, this is really cool. So Basecamp is actually coming out with a free option. So you can have 3 tasks and up to 20 users.
Nice.
So if you have like a small business, who maybe is trying to keep their budget or whatever, I was really happy to see that Basecamp does that. Do you guys integrate with Basecamp too?
We have not used Basecamp in probably like 4 years. So I know that it's completely different than it was when we were using it. And we've not had any clients that have used it either. So it's changed a lot since the last time that we were in there, but we've worked with some similar kind of project client management type things. So keep that in mind as I'm going through my list too, is that, I might say Pipedrive, which is the CRM that a lot of our clients use, but almost any CRM out there has a Zapier integration. So even if it's not the one that I'm specifically mentioning, if you have something similar, there's probably an automation for it as well.
Sure. Awesome. All right. Well, I'll try to stop interrupting and let you do your thing.
No worries. So probably my favorite Zap is the ability to add an attachment from an email directly to a client's Google Drive folder. Because how many times have we needed that attachment, but they sent it to us a week ago or 6 months ago, and now you have to search your inbox for it. You're trying to find it. You downloaded it originally, but you have no idea if you downloaded it to your desktop or your Google Drive or wherever it is. So if we can just go ahead and extract that attachment and add it directly to their Google Drive client folder, that is such a time saver, because if they're sending you an attachment, there's a reason they're sending it to you. So you're going to need it eventually. So let's go ahead and get it in a place where you can easily access it. The only kind of thing there that you have to remember is that you have to save your client folder by the email address that they're using. So where you might typically store me as Jessica Bledsoe, I need to be Jessica at Elevate by RCN. That way Zapier can find me and put my attachment in there. And Zapier walks you through kind of all these little idiosyncrasies as well in terms of how to set it up. So it'll kind of walk you through step by step on what you need to do so that you can get it set up right the first time.
Okay.
The next one would be creating a Trello card from a new email. So a lot of times, again, we get emails from people where they're asking us to do a task, and we try to manage all of our tasks in one place so we can create a new Trello card from an email. The way we have this set up is so that if I apply a filter to that email, then it will automatically add the email as a Trello card, because obviously not every single email needs to have a Trello card created for it. Sending emails from Gmail for a new Facebook lead ad. So if you're running a Facebook lead marketing campaign and someone fills out that kind of web form that you set up, you can go ahead and automate the process of sending them an email. So it could be something as simple as thank you for submitting your form, here's some information. Or you can go ahead and send them a link to your calendar too, where they could book a follow-up call with you. So it just kind of helps you contact that lead as soon as they've made that initial contact without maybe waiting a day or so before you get around to it. Go ahead and automate that so that you continue to stay kind of top of mind for them and they don't fall through the cracks or change their mind about wanting to talk to you.
Right. That's such a huge gold nugget right there.
Yeah, because if they've submitted that lead ad, they're excited about it already. So let's not give them 24 hours to change their mind, right? Let's go ahead and get in their inbox and take that next step with them. So if you already know what that next step is, go ahead and create a template email that can be sent out as soon as they submit the form and get that next step going.
Awesome. Love it.
So kind of in that same line is to send an email for a new Google form submission. So if you have someone that's submitting a Google form or even a type form, really any sort of form, you can go ahead and trigger a Zap to send them an email upon submitting that form submission. So we have a client who she helps people write books for their businesses, so business book authors. And she has a couple of different forms on her website, and based on the form that they fill out, she has different information that she wants to send them. So if she receives a form submission for a potential new author, then they get an email that lays out exactly what the next steps are as far as getting a time on her calendar. They can go ahead and submit a first draft of their blog or of their book or their book cover, things like that. So So it really kind of just, like I said, it gets into those next steps without you having to be the one to take the action, because we can get just so caught up in our day-to-day that our inboxes get out of control.
Oh,
so
yeah.
email is one of the easiest things that you can automate right off the bat, because that's where you spend so much of your time. And if you can get out of your inbox a little bit, you'll get so much more time that you didn't even realize you were spending, because you're like, oh, it's an email. It takes me a minute to send it. But if you're doing that, 15 times a day, and then it's not just the time it takes to send it, it's the time it takes to get back into the task you were working on before you sent that email as well. So all those little things really do add up, especially over the course of a year, or if you have a large team in place or even a small team. That 15 minutes multiplied by 5 now just came.
That's such a huge thing. I know Tim Ferriss talks about only checking his email twice a day, basically once in the morning and once in the early afternoon. And I, at first I thought, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that, right? But then once I implemented it, it was amazing how much time you got back. And then if you were to add in, the robot, so you don't even have to deal with half of your inbox. That's just absolutely amazing. And you don't think about, how much brain width you're wasting by going back and forth, because you're thinking about this topic, and then that email pops up, and then it takes 5 minutes to go back to think about that topic, and you got to get back in the zone of copywriting or whatever you were doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely, totally on board with that.
This has absolutely nothing to do with Zapier, but I actually turned off all the notifications on my phone too, so I no longer get those like email pop-ups. I don't get any sort of social media alerts, just because I'd be sitting here typing out content, and then my phone would vibrate, and I'd look over, and I'm like, oh, what does that email say? And before you know it, I've lost an entire hour, because now I'm fully in my inbox, and I'm like, oh, well, this will only take me a minute. This will only take me a minute. This will only take me a minute.
Yep.
And then my day's gone, and I never actually accomplished the task that I set out to do. So, so those, anytime you can minimize those distractions, it's going to make your life a lot easier when it comes to actually checking things off your to-do list.
Awesome. Love it.
So Google Calendar, those creating events from a Google form submission is something that has worked really well for a number of people, but specifically I work out of a co-working space a couple days a week, and there are, I would say probably 24 different businesses that are in and out of that space, and we have a primary calendar that everyone has access to, and they were having to email the director of operations anytime they had any sort of event, and she would have to manually add it to the calendar, and now we can we just have a form on the website that everyone can fill out with an event that they have that they're hosting, and it automatically gets added to that kind of master calendar of events. So when you have someone like your director of operations who's having to take time out of her day to add 5 different calendar entries, that's just not a great use of her time.
Right.
So.
Yeah, not very efficient at
exactly.
the hourly rate she should be billing, right?
Exactly.
That's where I come in.
Perfect.
Find somebody who can do that a whole lot less expensive. But I guess you got a robot that does it, so.
Yeah, and there's always going to be things that robots can't do that it does require a human to step in and fill that gap. But if it's something a robot can do, go ahead and let the robot do it. Sometimes it's hard for us to release control a little bit. And maybe you're not super trustworthy of technology, but what we love about both Google and Zapier is that, these are tools that have been around for a really long time now. They're tested, they're secure, they are more than willing to go over step by step with you exactly how everything works. And we're always happy to do the same with our clients too, to kind of give you that peace of mind. But I would say, honestly, 100% of the time, by the time we're done, our clients are like, how did we ever work before? We are so much more efficient now. How were we ever even getting anything done before we deployed these robots into our business to do some of these things for us? So it's a really noticeable difference. Yeah, for sure.
Once you start using them and you realize how much free time you can implement it, you're like, oh, what else can I offload?
Yeah, that's true. We do have clients that once we finish a project, they're like, give me a week and I'm going to come back with another list of things, because it gets wheels spinning too on what am I doing every every day or multiple times a day, because that's usually a pretty good indication of something that can be automated. If you're having to do it over and over and over again, there's probably at least a 50%, a way to automate it 50% of the way so that you can take back even just a portion of your time in doing that task.
Awesome.
Let's see where I was at here. So the next one would be to create a new CRM deal for a Facebook lead ad. So kind of in that same regard, if someone fills out your Facebook lead ad, let's go ahead and get them into your CRM pipeline. Again, Pipedrive is the one that we use, so I've specifically used it for that, but I know there are so many different CRMs, and almost all of them that I've found have been integrated there. So let's get them into your pipeline so that you know what your next steps are. You can assign it to a different member on your team if that's what it takes, but let's just eliminate the need of getting it out of Facebook and into your CRM, because if it stays in Facebook, they're probably going to get forgotten about at some point.
So just out of curiosity, why did you pick that CRM over all the options out there?
It's easy to use. So many CRMs are just loaded with so many features that you really don't need, you're not going to use, but you're paying for them anyway. And what we really love about Pipedrive is it's very affordable, and it just has exactly what you need. And it also kind of has that kind of Kanban process where you can move your deals through stages. And it also has built-in automations. Yep. So with Pipedrive, if you move it into another stage, it can automatically send out an email based on the stage that it's in.
So does it integrate in with your email provider, or it's its own email provider?
It does integrate in with your email provider, so it integrates really nicely with G Suite. So you can keep all of your emails to that, that potential client or that client inside of the CRM, and you can trigger those emails. It has a built-in scheduling tool similar to like Calendly.
Yep.
So you can integrate that. It has really nice web forms that can be embedded on your website, but it doesn't have a lot of the stuff that you don't need. And those are the places where we find where people get really overwhelmed with trying to implement a new technology in their business, is they go into it with the best of intentions, but then when you look at it, you're like, what do I need? How do I set it up? How do I integrate it with the other tools that I'm using? And they just get really overwhelmed. And so they end up paying for something that they're not using, or they're only using halfway. And with Pipedrive, we found that it really gives you just exactly what you need and really nothing else, which is perfectly fine with us.
Yep, that's awesome. In fact, one of the things that we talk a lot about around here is keep it simple, sweetheart. So the KISS principle, it doesn't have to be complicated.
Sweetheart is way better than stupid.
Right. So, if you could just keep it simple. So many people try to, and it's just like you said, it's just overwhelmed. There's like, oh my gosh, all this stuff, and you don't need it. Let's get in there, get what it needs to do, and get out. So.
Yeah, and if you need it to do something that it doesn't do, that's where something like Zapier could come in. We could always kind of build upon that, but let's just pay for and use what we need and not waste our time and money on things that we don't. So I get it now that I'm developing an app from a developer standpoint, where you have the ability to add all of these features and you're like, well, I could do this and I could do this and I could do this. But at the end of the day, like, I keep coming back to like, no, like this is the thing that I set out to build, and I want to build it this way for a reason. And so let's at least get that out there into the hands of our customers before we start adding on features that they may or may not even want. So when we launch the app, which is kind of TBD because we're on Google's timeline a little bit.
Okay.
But when we launch, we're actually only launching with one feature, and that's the ability to tag your calendar entries, because in our market research, we found that was the thing that people were asking for over and over and over again. So we're going to launch with just that feature, and then kind of do some customer surveys to see exactly what they want next. So we have in our mind what we want to do with it, but that's totally subject to change based on what our users actually need. But that was the one thing that we knew for certain we wanted to launch with.
Awesome. And that's huge, being able to tag something and then be able to search by the tag. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's almost like, why doesn't this exist already? Which to me, like, those are the best ideas, because if you find something that you don't understand why it doesn't exist, and then you can be the one to build it, like, that's such a really cool opportunity. So
absolutely.
So I'm really excited for the launch of the app, obviously, but it's been a process in looking at it from a developer standpoint and not a user standpoint, because that's what I've I've always been a user. I've never been a developer in the sense of actually creating my own app. So,
okay.
So I understand how they can add all those features because it seems like it's something that should be done. We have to reel ourselves in all the time from not over complicating things.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, back to my list. So the next one would be to collect new type form responses as rows on Google Sheets. So I love Google Forms because it automatically does that for you. It'll add your responses to Google Sheets, but I get that Google Forms are not as pretty as type forms. And so if you are somebody who just will not give up your type form in lieu of Google Forms, then that kind of solves that problem. We can at least get it into the spreadsheet because once it's into the Google Sheet, then that's really when we can, again, start looking at the data. Data is so important to us, but it should be important to everyone because data is really how you can make better decisions about the growth of your company and how things are going. And if you don't have the data, you're really just taking a guess, an educated guess, but it's still just kind of a guess without the data to back it up.
All about the numbers. You're absolutely right.
So if you're not willing to give up your pretty type forms, then you can at least create a Zap that will get it into the sheet where you can start, messing with some
At least 70% of my clients are going to be ecstatic that they don't have to give up their pretty form.
Yeah. I get it. I mean, it is prettier. I keep hoping that Google will redo the forms interface, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. So.
Yeah, they give it to you for free, so
exactly. You can't really gift horse in the mouth or whatever that's saying.
Yeah.
My next tip would be to use the add new subscriber from form submission. So if you are leveraging an email list and you don't have something in place to get every single email address that comes your way into your email manager, this is a really good way to do that. If you're not utilizing like the lead forms and things that they go ahead and give you, if you'd rather use the forms that you already have, then you can go ahead and set up a Zap to add them into your mailing list. So we use MailerLite. I know that it can be done pretty simply with MailerLite, but I know that Constant Contact and MailChimp and ConvertKit and all those other ones are out there too.
Yeah, I think I run into Infusionsoft and Drip a lot.
Yep. I've actually not heard of Drip, but I have heard of Infusionsoft.
Oh, Drip's awesome. Drip can do a lot of stuff automated.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, that's what I love about MailerLite, which it seems like most of the email platforms now are building in some automated ways to use it. But I always recommend too, if it's natively in there, go ahead and use it. Don't try to set up a Zap for something that already exists,
Right.
So if it's something that you're paying for or that it's already there, go ahead and try to use the automation that's built in. It's probably gonna work better in the long run anyway. And Zapier's not, I mean, it is free to a point, but when you're
at a certain point, after so many actions, you start paying for it.
Yeah, you start getting paid. You have to pay for it. So it's not, it's not completely free. So go ahead and take advantage of all the things you can for the apps that you're already using. And most of them are fortunately starting to build in some of those native automations.
So can I ask a side question about that?
Yeah.
So I have a lot of colleagues who use, instead of using Zapier, they use If This Then That, which is the free version. Have you been able to play with that at all?
So when If This Then That and Zapier first kind of emerged, we kind of played around with both of them. And we just found that Zapier was just easier to use. And also the way that it helped you set up was easier because also if you can do it yourself, do it yourself. Don't pay me to do something that you can do yourself.
Right.
So if I can point you in the direction and you want to try it yourself, then absolutely go for that. And we found that for the clients that we were working with then and even now that Zapier was just a little bit better for the guided setups and ways to set it up. And then I don't remember exactly what it was, but If This Then That no longer works with something really important. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I noticed a couple of months ago that it said this If This Then That integration was no longer being supported. And if that had happened to us on Zapier, we would have been scrambling to figure out what we were going to do to replace it. So
yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's automating so much that the price that you pay for Zapier is so minimal compared to what you're getting.
If you look at I mean, the way I look at everything now is like, what is my time worth? And then what am I going to have to pay to eliminate this? And if it's going to save me even $1, then I'm willing to go ahead and do it, because it's that mind space too. It's not just the time, it's you're freeing up your energy and your mind to be able to think about other things and not have to worry so much about all the things that you have to do. So if you could take your to-do list from 15 items to 5 items for $40 a month, then that's gonna make sense to do it.
Right, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so I think we're on our last 2 here. So the next one would be to create a new invoice from a Google Sheet row. So this one has some pretty specific applications, but if you're using QuickBooks, there are several different ways that you can automate your invoicing process. So a lot of times what we'll find is that QuickBooks is like the last step for people. Like they know they have to use it, but they like wait until everything else is done before it actually gets put into QuickBooks.
Right, exactly.
So if we can,
it's because we all hate accounting.
Oh, I get it. I have outsourced that piece of it because I hate it so much, so much. So I totally get it, and I empathize with those people. But if you can automate going ahead and generating that invoice in QuickBooks, let's go ahead and do that. So one way to do that is if you add it to a Google Sheet row, because a lot of people do track their income inside of like a spreadsheet. But there are other ways. If you look at the QuickBooks automation on Zapier, it has like a list of ways that you can automate things. However, that is one of the premium features, so you do have to be on a paid version to access any kind of QuickBooks integration. But it's probably going to be cheaper than having to hire a bookkeeper to work full-time, or even just to come in and clean up your books. I had to have somebody come in and clean up my books every year in my business because I set out with the best of intentions, but I could never actually keep up with it until finally I was like, you know what, like somebody else has got to deal with this, because clearly I cannot. So, so there's some different automations. You can actually, you can create the invoice, you can mark the invoice as paid, you can apply it to a specific chart of accounts. Like there are multiple ways that you can automate that bookkeeping process. But I will say those are some pretty sophisticated zaps. So I would get comfortable with Zapier and the different paths that things can take and the different kind of triggers that will set off things before you jump into something like automating something just as important as your bookkeeping, because you want to make sure that all that is 100%.
So let's say, we have some subscribers here who are listening to this and they're like, hey, this is awesome. And you know what? I want the done for you version. I want, Jess, I just want you to come in and do it for me.
Yeah.
How do they hire you? And I know it's going to vary, but ballpark, what do you guys charge and how can they get in contact with you?
Yeah. So if you go to our website, which is elevatebyRCN.com, there is a schedule your discovery session button that you can click and fill out. So we always start with a free discovery session, which is where you just kind of brain dump on us all the things that you're doing that maybe you don't want to do, and we'll figure out if it's possible to automate it or not. And then we'll kind of come back to you with a plan of action. And that really does vary. I mean, we've had, a client that I'm working with right now, she already had all of her processes in place. They just weren't automated, but she had step-by-step, this is how I do stuff. If you can come in with that, we can get that done pretty quickly. I think her project was like $2,500. But we've had companies that we've been working with for 3 years now, and they've paid us well over $80,000 at this point. So it really does vary based on the size of your business, how many people you're working with, and then also how well you already know the systems that you're using. Because a lot of time what we'll find is that we might have to spend 20 to 40 hours just helping you document what your process is before we can actually start to automate any of that process.
Awesome. Okay, so ready for a fun question?
Yeah.
All right. If you could put one thing on a billboard, what would it be and why?
If I could put anything on a billboard, it would be www.getpaver.com. And that's PAVR, no E. Obviously, I would put it up there because we will be launching within the first quarter of the year, and we are collecting potential beta users on the website right now. So if you're a Google Calendar user and you want to start taking control of the time that's on your calendar, it definitely, I would put that on every billboard in every city and in the United States if I could.
Okay. You stole my thunder. That's what I was going to tell everybody to go to your website and sign up for the beta. So
Yes.
We'll get to that. But okay, so who would you say was the most influential in your business development?
Oh, honestly, that would have to be my business coach. So we worked with, we're working on our 8th year in business, and about 2 years in, we hired a business coach, and honestly, it wasn't a great experience. I didn't really come away with that from much, but I did come away with the fact that having somebody hold me accountable was really important for me, and that was the one thing that coach did. So when I was looking for another business coach, I kind of knew exactly what I was looking for, what didn't work in that with that previous coach, and what I was looking for. So when we found a business coach, and I say we because my husband's my business partner, so we did these coaching sessions together, and he also ended up being like our marriage counselor too, because it's really hard to work with your husband.
Right.
But he coached us for almost 4 years, and he's still a mentor that I touch base with. And if ever I get to the same point in my business, I would absolutely go back to him, because there was a point in our business in 2016 where, I mean, honestly, the business just kind of burnt to the ground. We kind of put all of our eggs in one client basket, and that client got so big that they decided it would be more cost effective for them to bring all of their IT in-house. And we just about lost it all because we had not planned for that, and we had not saved for that. And so even after we had to let go all of our employees, we let go of our office. We reduced the amount. We were only paying ourselves when there was money, but we always paid that business coach because we knew without him there would not be a business if we didn't figure out what we needed to do. So he was definitely instrumental in turning our business into what it is now, because it did not look like this when we first started.
That's awesome. So do we get a name, or are you keeping him?
Oh, sure. Yourself? No, his name is Brian Haup. It's Rezone Coaching is the name of his coaching program. Let'sRezone.com. I absolutely would encourage anyone to reach out to him. I will say that his coaching practice has shifted a little bit. Right now, he's primarily focused on coaching like high executive leaders and things like corporations. He's not working so much with small business owners like us. I always like to say that he just like keeps me around because I'm such a success story for him. But
that's great. That's always nice to be that.
Yeah. If you are someone who's leading a team and you're unsure of that leadership role, and maybe you're just an executive in your own company, then he's absolutely incredible. I would recommend him to anyone.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for the tip.
Yeah.
What is the best book that you've most recently read?
That would be You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. I've actually read it twice now. And nice. So 2019 for me was the year of getting control of my money. And I didn't realize how much my money mindset played a part in that. And so her book was just kind of like an introduction, and I've gone a lot farther than that. But I love the way that she breaks it down, and there's some kind of like journaling prompts and things that you can do in there. So if ever I feel like I need a little reset, I kind of go back to that book and work my way through it again.
Nice. That's awesome. I had, so for non-business, for personal side, there's like, I kind of went through the whole Dave Ramsey thing, so the envelope system and all that stuff. Yeah.
I have an envelope binder in my desk.
There you go. I do it too. I'm like so guilty. I'm like, oh, what do I have left for the month?
Apparently I have to like visually see my money to understand if it exists or not.
Well, it's just so easy to just use your debit card.
Yeah, the bank is an imaginary place, and a debit card is like imaginary money.
Yeah. But I actually ran into a book that was kind of the Dave Ramsey theory, but for business, and it was called Profit First.
Oh, I've heard of that, but I've not read it yet.
Yeah, so I haven't read it either. The book came in the mail yesterday, so we'll see how that one goes. But kind of the same deal. They do like an envelope system and stuff. So super awesome. Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So as a thank you to you for your time and willingness to do this, I wanted to give you something. And and I'm sure you're probably actually already an expert at this, but it's the best way I know how to give back to you. So I would like to give you a copy of our signature online coaching series, which is running on autopilot. And what it does is it goes through, and you obviously already know the robot side, how to automate all that, but it goes through how to train and interview and be able to outsource your tasks for minimal. So after this recording, I will go ahead and shoot that over to you, but you can find it at runningonautopilot.co. And hopefully that will be a awesome Christmas present, and you might get some value out of that because you have just dropped a ton of value for us. So I really, really, really appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that as well, because as good as we are at deploying robots, I would love to be able to outsource some of these human tasks. And I'm just such a in-person person that I haven't figured out exactly how to navigate hiring someone who's not going to sit down at a desk with me. So
it's so much easier than you think. And go through that course and you'll be an expert by January. So,
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll send that over, and thank you so much. Sorry, I have my little notes over here, so I don't forget anything. Okay. Thank you so much for your time and knowledge. I know our subscribers are absolutely going to love this. So everybody who is listening to this, don't forget to go to Paver. It's PAVR.com, right?
Get Paver. Get.
Oh, it's Get Paver.
Yep. GetPaver.com. So yeah, please go and sign up for that list. We'll let you know as soon as we're live. We were accepted into a program with Google that kind of changed the way that we're approaching this. But either way, get on that list. We'll let you know, and we would love to have your feedback if nothing else. So please sign up.
All right. So if everybody absolutely loves this, do we get to do this again?
Oh yes, absolutely. I look forward to it. Not if, when.
All right, when. That sounds great. Jess, thank you so much for your time. This was awesome. I really, really appreciate all your insight. And I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas and an awesome 2020 coming up.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you for tuning in to the Automate to Dominate podcast at www.awesomeoutsourcing.com/podcast. My name is Michelle Thompson.